All right. Welcome to another episode of Miracle Mindset for Men. I'm your host, Heru Dre, aka Dre, aka Handsome Heru. Today, I have a very special guest this evening. I want y'all to welcome my brother, Black Dot. How you doing, Mr. Black Dot?
Peace, man. Peace. It's a pleasure to be on your show and talk about some things that truly affect us men.
Yeah. I've been doing this for about I started in March. So what happened was I started on my Instagram. I was doing all the episodes live on Instagram until I figured out how I wanted to do YouTube. So then I uploaded all the old videos to YouTube, and then I just started doing them on my YouTube channel. So this month particular, I wanted to get who I consider to be prolific men on the podcast, especially dealing with Men's Mental Awareness Month. And I think it's important that we discuss some things that can help our brothers out there who may be going through stuff and fighting battles alone. Because, let them know that we see them.
Yes.
They may feel like they're not being seen. And I remember I talked to you last year on Brother Rich channel, this same time this year, about men's mental health. And I said that black men had the highest suicide rate in America.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That kind of blew me away,
Yeah, because it's a lot of silent battles that we go through, and we don't really have nobody to talk to about them. So I just want to let them know, like, I'm here for you, brother. Like we see you. We all in this together.
Yes.
So
that is very admirable of you. To provide that service.
Yeah, I think it was what really initiated me to really dive into it. There was a story I was reading on Facebook. I think this is right after the Non-Ether God Fest. This man was involved with this lady, and I guess for whatever reason she didn't want to be with him anymore, so he took her life. And she was like a mother of two kids and stuff like that. And I'm not
about that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, there's always three sides to a story, and there's always a conversation behind closed doors. But I feel like for him to do that, he should have had his friends around to tell him, hey, let her go, leave her alone and stuff like that. And it seemed like a lot of women are, they feel like they're not protected by black men anymore. And, they feel like they got to fend for themselves, and I don't want them to feel that way. So I created this platform to help men help themselves to be better fathers, better lovers, better friends, better peers, protect their elders and stuff like that, and for the children as well. So I'm just trying to, do my best and walk in my purpose.
No, I love it. So when you contacted me about this conversation in the midst of me releasing my book dealing with those issues, I think that this is an opportune time to have great in-depth conversations regarding men, our egos at times, and how we were reared sometimes in a home full of women in regards to how it is to be a man, and we kind of lose some of what that's really all about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So I had Brother Rich on here. I had King Simon. I had Q Reeves. I had my friend David, and I had my other friend Aramis on here in the past 2 weeks. We were talking about different things and trying to come up with different solutions to help men help themselves. And I mentioned to Rich about, forming a brotherhood. I think that's important to have men around you, but not just any kind of men, men that require the 3 R's. You got the responsible, the respectable, and the righteous men. And I think that they'll be the one who can hold you accountable and steer you in a direction that will lead you to the disagreeables and put you in jail or 6 feet under,
No,
so I think that's important to have. And in the near future, I would like to put something together, whether it's in-person thing or an online thing where you get a bunch of prolific men like yourself and Rich and the Pills and 19 Keys and Billy Carson, and we could just come together and like create a brotherhood for the men who need help.
Yes.
So I think that's important to have that. So today's conversation is about from generational curses to generational cure. Now I remember listening to you on Rich Show last year, and you mentioned generational cure, and I was
Yes.
like, that's a dope ass concept. I sound like that. So, what does generational cure look like to you?
Generational cure is going to be the recognition of one generation that the trauma that they've suffered from does not have to continue on. So the awareness of the correctness of self helps begin that process. And so if you were beaten, you come from a drug addicted family, in one generation with the proper understanding that you don't want to transfer this information to your children, you become aware that I must be better, I must think better, and I must position myself better so that when I bring the next generation of children in, they're starting from a whole different a point of reference, which gives them a better chance to grow in an environment that helps them to shed what their dad and their granddads and their granddads went through. However, if we are not honest with self and deal with self, look in the mirror and truly deal with self, it will continue, because a lot of times we pass on what happened to us innately. And so we have to become aware first and then shift the consciousness before we plant seeds in our women.
Okay. So how can one person get from the generational curse to the generational cure?
Again, that's going to deal with knowing as much as you need to know about your past. You know, a lot of times this generation, we were connected to our elders, my generation, so to speak. I'm 57, or I'll be 57, in a way that grandma was still there, and grandma talked about grandpa. And, you know, we had an oracle history for the most part taught to us about what the elders before us did. This generation is almost like disassociated, so to speak. I don't know if it's through social media or other means. So a lot of them don't even have an understanding of who they are. And if you don't know who you are, how can you possibly build a game plan within self to get you somewhere else? Now remember, I am because we are. And that's an African proverb, which means everything I do, I'm taking my elders, my ancestors, my inheritance with me. And so by becoming aware through study and all these other attributes of what the issues that plague the family are, I, as the architect of my journey, have a better opportunity to change that, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, I think the disconnect and the problem that comes with my generation and the generation after is that we're losing respect for our elders. And I think that we're not getting that guidance from our elders no more, because it's like a double-edged sword, if you will. It's like we know that y'all mean well, but we know too much to know that some of the stuff y'all was taught, not like you per se, but some of the people in your generation was taught something that we feel is not right. So we try to take our own path to what we feel is right for us in a scenario to help benefit us in a world that, you know, has changed and we have to get accustomed to and stuff like that. And I still listen to my elders because they put me on game. Like I listen to what they say. I might not agree with everything, but I'm always listening out for that one thing that I do agree with, and then I can apply to my life. And I think that that's where the disconnect comes from, because they feel like my generation feel like the generation before us, they're stuck in one way and they're not catching up to the new way.
Well, let me address that really quick. if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
In my second book called Urban Culture Decoded, I use an analogy called analog versus digital. And it's a metaphor for the elders are old ways, are stuck in certain ways. The new generation are digital. They like their music fast. They like to skip to the song they want and have instant, access to those things. But inside of the analog record is something called, it's like a reverberation that you can't feel with digital, because digital is ones and numbers. So it's what music would sound like if it was really music, if that makes any sense. With an analog, there's a decay, there's so much essence and ambiance. Now, how do I apply that to life? My generation, we still feel the pain of civil rights. We still feel the pain of what our elders, and ancestors went through, because we are directly connected. I'm a 60s baby. And so just by reverberation, I still feel that. And so this generation is far removed from any of that. And what this generation doesn't like, and what I noticed, and this is the fault of the elders, they want you to be transparent. They want you to say you made mistakes. And they want you to, instead of talking down on them, they want you to be as transparent as possible, because to them, that is real. When they can sense that you're not being real and you're just talking down on them, that's where a lot of the trouble and problems come in. So me as an elder, I'm always transparent, first and foremost. Yes, son, I did that. I used to smoke weed. I used to do all of that and that and that and that. But the reason I'm here now, in the position that I'm here and in now, is because of these changes that I made. And so we have to allow grace for mistakes. We have to allow grace for them to grow through their experiences. And I think we're all discombobulated because, like you said, you still listen to your elders, but most of these young people do not. They would rather listen to social media or their favorite rapper who's lying to them about what's really going on.
Yeah, selling them a dream and telling them this is the life and stuff. And
but yet they got a wife at home and they're sending their kids to college. They live in a gated community. They have a wife. They're sending their kids to college. But the message that they're sending to you is something totally different. Absolutely.
Yeah, because they know it's like, I look at it as destruction sells. That's how I look at it. If it, and I think it's the 808 beats too, that rhythm in our ears, and we listen to that, it's changing the frequency in our brains to make us think differently, act differently, and talk differently. So we're not aware. We're like losing our awareness because we're so caught up in this frequency, and it's not even our true selves.
And it's a low vibrational frequency. Remember that bass bottom, that's the lower chakras. And so that's dealing with fear, anger, resentment, sexual energy, and all of that. Survival mode. And so remember, music is the only thing that can enter your subconscious mind without your permission. We cannot ignore the music. It is us. We are the music. We are the rhythm. We are Rise Hymn and all of that stuff. And so by listening to something of a low vibrational frequency that opens up your chakras and then dumps negative messages inside of you, you become almost like a Wi-Fi antenna. You know what I mean? And the messages that you're receiving are not necessarily yours, but they have connected inside of you the ability to control part of your thinking, especially for young people who don't have true understanding of who they are.
I know. See, I'm like in between. It's like, because at my age, I kind of got to stay hip with what's going on so I don't get left out. But I love old school music. Like, give me R&B all day. I love me some Earth, Wind, and Fire. Throw me some Marvin Gaye, some Sam Cooke, Anita Baker. I love that feeling. Or just jazz. It ain't even got to be no words. I love jazz music.
Nice. And you are an anomaly in that sense, because even the young ones who grew up on hip hop, this is not hip hop. This is rap. This is something totally different you listening to now. It has the essence of hip hop, but this is rap music. And rap music is a totally different thing. First of all, it's corporate owned. You know what I mean? So corporations own rap music, and rap music is not designed to uplift. It's not designed to connect you, to your past. It's connected to keep you in a state and talk drill, rap. Your women ain't nothing. Your men, let's kill, kill, kill. And so it is a very dangerous source of music to be involved with. It really is.
Yeah, and I think that, how can I put it? I think, like you said earlier, we like our music fast because our attention span has gotten, it was like this, and then it shrinks and it shrinks and it shrinks to where we don't have an attention span anymore. So we always want constant music. When you mentioned analog versus digital, you did feel the analog. You felt the soul. You felt the energy in it.
Yes.
It was more heartfelt. And and they didn't always throw out music. They gave you like one good album, and you listened to it for like 5-6 years.
Yes, yes. Because it was so much. It was so much to digest. It was so much to become aware of. The album cover meant something. Every aspect of it, and they were giving you a part of their actual heart and soul. They wasn't just cranking out music for sales and all of that kind of stuff. It was a different time. Not better, I'm just saying different in how music was conducted and why. And even to do an album back then, we all had to be in the same place. And so we all had to, as men or women, come together and share our energy. We had an opportunity to get to know each other. That's metaphysical and spiritual in itself, where now I can just ship my vocals over to you, never even have to know anything about you, your zodiac sign, what you like. If you beat your wife, none of that matters anymore. I could just ship my vocals over, and we've created, some songs. And so everything about digital is really about mass production, and everything about analog is the feel, the essence, and understanding what the ingredients are.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I always often feel like I like y'all generation better because y'all knew how to have fun. Like my generation doesn't know how to have fun without there being any type of jealousy going on. You're going for the wrong reasons. Back then, when y'all went out to party, y'all went to dance and meet the women.
Yes.
They don't do that now. They like, I went out this weekend, right? And you see everybody in their phone like this.
Right. Like
this. It's like you're not even enjoying the moment.
Absolutely. And we were just more connected because there was no social media divide. We came out, and if we had a problem with each other, we dealt with it. And, but for me the whole purpose to get a haircut and all that was to meet women, not down women, not disrespect. I wasn't going to a party with the to join on me to cause problems and to see my ops. We may have had it on us, but it wasn't for that. You know what I mean? And so all of that ties into the social media divide, where we're emotionally, and this brings it right back around to our conversation. A lot of this generation are emotionally void because they're not put into situations where they have to practice emotional fragility. You know what I'm saying? Fragility, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? I used to have to go apologize to my brother. You know what I'm saying? I go knock on my brother's door and see what's good. Or, things of that nature. We don't practice emotional fragility. Everything is a tough guy and everything is void of it. But deep down inside, we are who we are. And we're emotional beings. We love, we hurt, we get jealous, we're sad. And if we don't have proper outlets to express that, to give us balance, then we're always going to be out of balance. And that's going to express itself generally with violence in some kind of capacity. That's why everybody on edge and frustrated. And I've never seen our women this disconnected from their men like I have now. And I'm not blaming women. That's not what I'm doing. Just an observation where, women understood their position, that is, you know, who they are and how they can mold their man or any man into anything they want with the proper understanding and giving him a sense of support and things of that nature, so he could truly be the best he could be. She's the magic maker if she understands her position. But I haven't seen nothing like this in never, ever. And I study people.
Yeah, I like to observe. You know, I think at least my generation, I think we're losing a lot of self-respecting women, and we're getting a lot of the Jezebels.
Mhm.
and it's really hard to decipher between the two, because the Jezebels are hanging out with the self-respecting women, and then
Yeah.
some self-respecting women don't come outside, so we never really get a chance to see them.
Yes. No. What came first, the chicken or the egg? It is that kind of a conversation. And so you'll get the sisters to say, well, it's the brothers do this and the brothers do that. That's why I'm not into that conversation. I just know that it's there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like speaking about the whole gender war thing. I really think it's nonsense, because everybody just have their own. This is how I look at it. Everybody has their own preference of what they like, but downing somebody because they don't fit your preference is lame. That's lame to me.
Yeah,
Like,
popping a balloon on them and shit. And
yeah, like it's like, because it makes you think. It makes me think like you just doing this for attention. Like you're trying to. Like, I can understand you promoting the business, but you can go about it a different way. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah.
so many different ways to promote your business.
Yeah.
But being disrespectful and trying to be petty with people, it's like, why are you doing that? And that's why I really feel like now, just through like observation in general, when I talk to people and I watch them, a lot of people lack emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. And I don't see enough of that. I don't see people not knowing to be aware of the things that they doing, saying, thinking, and feeling. They're just saying whatever without like they
Yeah.
don't even care. They not being considerate of another person and how they feel.
Well, again, that also ties into shock value. This is a generation of shock value, sexual, flirtatious, innuendo, orientation. It's so much that is openly exposed that we have become immune to violence. We have become immune to, the over sexualization of things. And that conversation between a man and woman, that's been the most sacred thing in life since I was 9 years old, since I fell in love with Selena in the 9th grade. You know, my whole purpose was to try to impress her, you know what I mean, and build a connection with her. And, and so this generation, I just, and again, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm observing that there is just a disconnect in how they view the opposite sex, instead of understanding we make each other better, stronger, if we understood each other. And so when we listen to our grandmothers, and sure, there's going to be, and another thing, no one wants to go through any trials and tribulations anymore. Everything has to be instant. That's not the way the world works. I talk to some young people, they want the perfect man, this, that, money. I'm saying, if he's perfect, then why does he need you?
Right.
And what can you add to his perfectness? So we're not talking perfect. We're talking coming together and being able to build something that's worth us fighting for. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I don't know, but what I think why people can't understand each other, because they don't understand themselves. They don't have a sense of identity. And their thoughts are not formulated from their own. They take it on somebody else's thoughts. So they don't have no type of critical thinking. They lack basic people skills and stuff like that. So that's another way. Like, I can't understand you if you don't even know who you are yourself. Because now I'm trying to figure out who you are while you're trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah, and I didn't get. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not being paid to provide therapy for you, except in the natural sense of being your partner, perhaps. And we,
Mhm.
but like you said, if you don't know who you are, how am I supposed to know who you are? You know what I mean? And so there's a lot. If you come into the relationship already with a certain amount of deficit, you know what I mean? Well, you got problems at home, baby mama drama, this, that. You ain't had your dad around. You was abused, or this, that. You don't trust men because of this, that. That means you're coming with a deficit that you expect me to fill to bring you up to par so that we can have, because I got my own issues. You know what I mean? That as a man, that I'm fighting and I'm looking for help, not for you to fill it, but for help us together, maybe build something we can talk about.
Right. That's how you build character. Like when you said everybody wants stuff easy, you have to go through the trials and tribulations to build character. You got to get it
Yes.
out the mud. Like I
You
don't know
got
why
to
they
get it
want
out
to
the
do
mud.
that.
Yes.
Like I would never want to find somebody perfect, but I want somebody who understands me, that's gonna love me for who I am, flaws and all.
And
It's a simple concept. It really is, but
it really is. But we
people just
overcomplicate
complicate
it.
it. Yeah, for no reason.
I agree. And in any relationship, you have to provide vulnerability. And when men have a problem being vulnerable to the right woman who's not going to use that vulnerability against him, but find a way to nurture that vulnerability into a safe space to talk about things that are on our mind, because we have a lot on our mind. Women's vulnerability usually comes from the mistake of being in 5 or 6 worthless relationships due to her fault, his fault, whatever. And now she's looking for her Mr. Right, but it requires her to be vulnerable on chance number 6 or whatever that may be. And so we are we're in a weird space as men and women.
Yeah. So when you mention the vulnerability, and that was my next point about why men are feeling like they're not seen and they going through these suicidal thoughts. And do you think that men need to have female friends to vent to make themselves feel like they're in a safe space, or should they only focus on men who can relate to them to make them feel like they're in a safe space?
Well, I think both. You have to surround yourself. You have to have a mentor. I know that's really not a good term, but you know what I mean.
A teacher.
Or a teacher or a
Yeah.
series of men who, first of all, have experience. And so
Mhm.
if you can't talk to your counterpart the way you can talk to somebody who's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt, your counterpart is going to be looking at it from a point of reference not too different than your own. And if your counterpart, you ever tell your man, yeah, man, shorty, this, that, and he'll just come out and say, F that chick, this, that, man, this. And then you wind up getting back with your girl, and now the situation is awkward because he didn't mean anything by it. He was trying to tell you from his point of view and his experiences what he would do. And so a teacher or somebody you look up to has to be somebody qualified through experiences and can provide tangible information for you to chew on and digest. You don't have to do it exactly the way I've done it. But young
Mhm.
man, listen, yes, I've been divorced, or I've been this, or yeah, I've been here. This is how I handled it. This is how I dealt with the pain. Sometimes you need to speak to women because they're just smarter than men. You know what I mean? And their intuitiveness, and they can understand, especially if it's not a woman you're in a relationship with, right?
Mhm.
Or had a previous or trying to get with. If it's just a woman, she has the ability to see things that you just can't, because your ego blocks your vision in most cases. And
Yeah.
she's absorbing energy from her spirit and her heart.
Yeah, I think it's important to have both. I do have a lot more female friends than men friends, not on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a simple fact that I learned a lot from the women And I kind of like put my male friends on game, like, hey, this is what they think of us, or this is what you can do to kind of like, get the one that you need or the one that you want, or whatever the case may be. I
I was
think
raised
that,
by women. I was raised by nothing but women, and I would sit there and listen to the conversations that they were having about us men. And so I was able to avoid not every mistake, because you still got to walk the walk. I
Mhm.
was able to avoid quite a few mistakes by listening.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing too. A lot of people don't listen. They just hear you, or they'll listen
Yeah,
at you. They'll listen at you. And then when
right.
they do listen, I don't think they comprehended what you're saying. Because it's
Hmm.
like, because the attention span, like I said earlier, the attention span is so small. It's like you talking to a brick wall, and it's like it always seemed like a person. You have to let a person go through something for them to start to listen.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's how it be. Instead of just listening the first time, which I learned this new concept a couple years ago from the book, The Mastery of Love,
Mm.
and it was talking about the domesticated process, where we go through a domesticated process where we are shaped and formed based off of how our parents raised us or how our peers see us, right? And in the book, he said that you have to learn how to self-identify, and you have to create who you want to be for yourself and not who you want to be for your parents, your peers, or the people in the corporate world. And it talked about you have to understand that you can't believe what I say, meaning the author. You can't believe what people say, and you definitely can't believe what you say, meaning yourself. Because he
Yeah.
said, like, even though he said he's not saying that people are lying, but it's a simple fact that you got to understand that their actions are going to speak more than what they say. So you follow the action before you follow what they say.
Always.
So,
Always. And I want to play something for you. I don't know if you heard of this brother Steve Bann. You ever heard of him?
mm-mm.
All right. It's very short. The reason we say we're all right is because listen to this. I'm here to tell you, it's not hard. Demons that you cannot even imagine. Man is struggling every single day to find a reason to keep going. The reason we say we're all right is because as a man, nobody really fucking cares what you're going through. So why even bother to say it? But you know what? I feel you, brother. Because I'm right too. And so it's very profound. I hope you was able to hear that.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of it. It was low, but
It's a little low, but what he's saying is, you ever asked another man how he's doing, and the man says, "I'm all right." Well, that man is not really all right. He's going through things that you could not possibly imagine in his life as a man, but he ain't got nowhere to share it. You know what I
mhm.
mean? And he said the reason we say we're all right is because nobody really cares anyway.
Yep.
But he says, I feel you, brother, because I'm all right too. You know what I mean? And that's the language of men. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right too, man. All right. And none of us are all right. You know what I
Nope.
mean? And so when we don't open up channels to go, are you all right? And go, nah, brother, I'm not all right. Well, what's going on? Well, this is what's going on. The first thing we say is, I'm all right. And he said,
Yep.
well, I feel you, brother, because I'm all right too. I know what
Mhm.
that means. That's a universal language among men that has to stop. His name is Steve Bann, and that piece is called I'm All Right Too. It's only a 45-second piece. And, just for your listeners, when you get a chance, when you hear it, you'll understand what that's really all about. I keep it on my phone because it's so powerful. When I'm going through something, I go, let me reach out to somebody else who I feel may be going through something. Let me
Yeah.
make that call. You know what I mean? And see, back in the days, I can put my hands on you. Meaning I go take you out to we're going to play ball or this and that. I can feel your energy. So I could tell something was wrong. But
Right.
in this media, in this era where we don't connect as much as we used to, everyone has an avatar on their social media that represents them, and it becomes a blocking stone to really get to know who your brothers are. You know what I'm saying? In this month of men's awareness.
You know, it's a coincidence that you mentioned that. Kirk Franklin had a Father's Day special on YouTube. It might have been on BT Plus, but I saw it on YouTube, and he had a couple of people on there. It was DC Young Fly, Country Wayne, Duvall. I forgot his last name, but he's like an actor, and it was another football player. His name is like Lou Young. And they was having a conversation about the things that they go through in their personal life. And they was like, you know, we be wanting to reach out to them, but we don't know what you got going on. We don't want to inconvenience your life with our problems because we know you got problems too. And DeVale was like, even if you do got problems, I need to make sure you're okay if I call you my brother.
Yes. Yes.
So like when he said, when you saying you all right, we say we all right, and we really not all right. There's a opening right there to let people know how we feel and tell them like, no, I'm not all right. Like, what's going on? Because then when you're talking about it, it makes you feel better.
Right.
Now you're getting it off your chest because, like I said in the previous episode, the reason why men are having these suicidal thoughts or they're having these acts of aggression because they're not letting out how they feel. And they're letting it out in a wrong way.
Or if you don't explode, you implode. And so you start internalizing and creating this internal combustion that leads to major health issues. Stress, the number one cause of death for Black people and Black men in particular. You know what I mean? Because we don't go to the doctors for whatever reason. And so, but the explode is not necessarily an explosion of violence, or it's a release of inner turmoil, inner pain, inner suffering, inner trauma. You know what I mean? And that's important. You know?
Yeah, no, you definitely right. That's why I just feel like my job, my mission, my purpose is to help them men out there, help themselves, let them know that you're not alone. Because I've been there. We've all been there. I had depressing times, man. It's not a good feeling. Because as much as you want to talk to somebody, you kind of feel like, I don't think they're going to understand where I'm coming from.
No, you're right.
And it's
but that's also why it's important when you talk to your peers, your approach on how you talk to your peers has to be in a way that doesn't seem like you're coming as their father or somebody above them. You're coming to them as their peers. When you're talking to your elders or somebody with a series of experiences, you can get straight to the point. Look, Shorty is bugging. You know what I mean? I don't know how to deal with her. You know, whatever the case may be, or man, it's hard finding work, or because when you being out of work, it may be as simple as networking with your brothers who go, oh, no, I got work. Oh, I know you needed work because you didn't say nothing. You keep up this facade.
That ego.
Like, your ego, like you got it. But we got positions open. Come on down. I'll vouch for you. And so it's all dependent, but peer to peer, you know, in this day and time when there's not a connection, like I'm still connected to my best friends since 4th grade. I don't even call them friends. We brothers. My brothers, since I've known for 3rd and 4th grade, we're still connected. So our peer to peer is different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, I often reminisce about the old days coming up because I didn't always grow up with social media because it was like a start thing for us. So I think it came around like when I was about like maybe 11 to 12.
Okay.
So that interaction with your friends, you calling them on the house phone, you coming over and you ride your bikes, all that stuff. So I got to experience that. You know what I'm saying? I got to actually always talk to my friends. And I remember I think this is before we even really got into social media. I remember my friends used to come over to my house at night, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a basketball court in my backyard. I had a basketball in my backyard. And we would just like talk about what we feeling, what we're going through. We like 16, 17 years old. You know, we ain't even experienced life yet, but we still going through something. And we're in this friendship and we just want to tell each other how we feel. And we trying to figure out how can we get through this and stuff like that. And now I can't even find friends like that anymore because you get older, you got lives now. You know what I'm saying? People get married, they got kids, they not here anymore, you know, so it can become a challenge, but it's still no excuse.
That is correct. It's a challenge. And then I have people who I haven't spoken to. And I hate when somebody says to me, yo, man, but you ain't called me in this long. Like your phone don't work. We got to get out of that too. Like, and I'm looking at my phone like, you ain't called me either. So what are we talking about here? And so we need to get over that. If I didn't receive a call for you for 6 months, I need to just call you. I don't need to say, well, he ain't called me, this and that, or, you know. And so that's ego. Let's move past that. You know who you need to speak to. You know who you love. You know who's been supporting you your whole life. And so those connections are very important. Shout out King Simon in the building.
What's up, King Simon? Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the new book you got out, Laugh to Keep from Crying.
Yes.
You talk to us a little bit about that and how you come up with that book. I mean, I know about it, but for the people who don't know about it, can you tell them?
Yes. Gotta laugh to keep from crying. I didn't start living until I thought I was dying. Well, the laughter is what we use to shield ourselves from having to deal with a lot of the stuff that's really going on. And so laughter becomes a mechanism to help us cope. Laughter is how we get rid of the energy by telling these stories that could be true. And that's why when you look at some of your most famous comedians, Richard Pryor, Robin Givens, Robin Harris, so many of them had personal issues that you couldn't imagine, but they dealt with it by providing laughter. And but under that laughter is I want to cry sometimes. I really do. I want to shed tears. I want to, release the energy. And I didn't start living until I thought I was dying, was just a way to really put in perspective how important every day in life is. If a doctor gives you 6 months to live, and then you all of a sudden really want to start experiencing life, and you turn that 6 months into 6 years of the best time of your life, why didn't you do that before this prognosis came in? And so that's what that terminology is about. It's a hardcover book. It's my third book, but it's the one that deals with my personal trauma, my personal pain, my suffering, but also my reemergence as a man, the triumphant steps, the joyous steps, and all the great accomplishments that I've been able to achieve in this short 56-year cycle or period.
Yeah, man, you are definitely a prime example from generational curse to generational cure, for sure. And you gave me, when you told me that, I told my dad that. I'm like, you know what, Dad? I'm like, you should be really proud of yourself. Like, from where you came from, like, you turned your generational curse into a generational cure. None of your kids had to go through what you went through coming up. We all know who our dad is.
Yes.
You've been married to my mother for 30, she gonna kill me, I think 37 years, 38 years, somewhere around there. But they've been married for a long time.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah, and they got 4 kids. We all graduated. We are doing our own thing and stuff like that. And I said, you should like we proud of you. I told him, I'm really proud of you.
Awesome.
That's tough. I know awesome. It's a challenge. I know it's a challenge, and a lot of his friends that grew up with their dad, so they kind of like raised themselves.
Yeah, and you do see a difference, yes.
Mm-hmm. And he made a conscious decision that he didn't want his kids to go through what he went through, and I think that right there should be an example for all men who do grow up in a single parent household, especially like, you know, like raised by their mothers. And me and King Simon talked about this. You need some type of male figure in a boy's life.
Yes.
That's important because
it's very important.
You only go. My philosophy, because I've dated a woman who had a son, and it was a challenge because he was so emotional, so young, right? Because his father was in and out his life, and you know, the first 7 years was going to shape that kid up.
Right.
And I kind of got him at the 8th year, so I got to deal with those first 7 years that he's been going through and stuff like that. And I'm trying to tell her, like, hey, it's just certain things you can't do with a little boy as a woman. You got to let a man step in and teach him these things so he don't grow up to be emotional or be emotionally triggered and do something crazy based off his emotions.
To the fact where he might kill a woman who rejects him because he wasn't taught how to deal with his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's what a lot of I just think that men and women have duties, right, when it comes to raising kids. And me and Q Reeves talked about this. The mother is the protector and the father is the preparer.
Mm-hmm.
The mother's supposed to protect you because she's supposed to show you the love and the empathy. The father's supposed to prepare you for what the world is going to do to you and how it's going to treat you. And
especially as a man, yes.
Right. Because it's different. Like if you always being pacified and baby, you gonna think that the world's supposed to do that to you. Then you get a reality check. You don't know how to handle it, and then all of a sudden, you're depressed or you're angry. You want to do something because you wasn't taught how to handle those type of pressures.
And we see that a lot in today's men, young men in particular.
Right, and that's why I feel like if you don't, it's an unfortunate thing that your father not there. Okay, I get it. But go get around some male figures, somebody who's doing something good with their life. Join a team, a football team, play sports.
Yes.
Let the coach be your teacher. You know, like I always feel like when you have your kids in sports, it keeps them focused.
All the time.
It keeps them out the streets. It keeps them from doing bad stuff, especially when the dad is not around. And even if the dad is around, the sports teach you discipline.
And discipline. I was getting ready to say that. So it teaches you camaraderie. It teaches you how to actually support and lean on another man. You know what I mean? You lean on your teammate. You know what I'm saying? In ways that we're working together in unison. It's so many lessons that sports do teach, and idle time is a vice. And so young men and young women, but young men in particular, need to be involved in something that gives them purpose. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They need to be involved knowing I got to show up because I play third base and they need me there. And then being around other young men, and hopefully the coaches are of integrity. And so they're not trying to violate our children. They're trying to raise them up. And I've had some great coaches in my life who had integrity, who enabled me to grow as a man, and, you know, all of that. So very important, very important.
Yeah, you know, and I think even with the organized sports, it teaches you the hardships and it teaches you the celebrations. Mm-hmm. Like it teaches you to keep your head up through adversity, and it teaches you how to celebrate your wins, and it keeps you goal-minded.
Yes.
So when you experience that, you want some more of it. So your determination and your drive and your will is going to enhance every year, every time. It teaches you about repetition. It teaches you about discipline. It teaches you about always showing up and doing your best, even when you not feel like doing your best.
Yes, yes.
So I play organized sports most of my life. I played football, basketball, and I ran track.
Nice,
so
nice.
I did it for a different reason. Like I love the sports, but I did it for
you love the girls. I know you love the girls.
You know, being popular in school.
Being popular in school is important.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah.
Those are good times. So I think that the young men out there, they need to experience some type of enjoyment. They need to experience that life is more than just these downs. There's also ups. And when you get to those ups, you're going to want that same feeling again. So you're going to keep striving for that same feeling even if you fail, I don't even look at it as fail. It's just like you need another attempt.
Right, right. It's the experience of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the young people today, and I blame social media for a lot of it because they emphasize winning so much that what they don't understand is they're putting a void between winning and losing that's so great. There is no losing. There are learned experiences. There's getting better. There's failing so that you can win. And they remove so much of that and make it all about winning because even in sports, I mean, kids don't want to play defense the way they used to for fear that they might get crossed over or somebody is filming this. We didn't care about none of that growing up. You know what I'm saying? If you're a shot blocker, you get dunked on. If
Right.
you're a home run hitter, you strike out. That's
Right.
that comes with the nature of what it is you do. And so, because we put so much emphasis on what winning is, these kids don't know how to lose. They don't know how to be gracious in defeat. And then when they talk to a girl, because it was a situation here in Harlem or up in the Bronx, these twin girls, this guy was making an advancement at one of them, and the sister, she politely said, "Nah, I'm good." And his advances got stronger, and so her rejection got a little stronger. And then he came out the store and shot her and killed her.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, because he could not deal
with rejection.
And I'm like, what? It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It was a point in time where I couldn't deal with rejection, and I didn't know how, because it's like, not saying I never been rejected before, but I never been rejected to a point to where somebody who used to like me didn't like me no more. That was the difference. So me like talking to someone for the first time, I get rejected. I don't get mad. I say, okay, I'm not her type.
Right.
But those things be like iffy because, you know, girls will reject you to see if you're going to play, if you're going to still go after them.
It's a game.
Yeah, and then when you don't do it, then they be like, oh, that's it, you're going to give up? I'm like, well, you just told me you didn't want to talk to me, so now...
85% of communication is nonverbal. And so being able to interpret her language without spoken word. Now, fellas, let me say this public service announcement. No means no. All right, so don't put yourself in a situation where you thought she meant yes. That's not what I'm talking about. Right. I'm talking about a feel beyond that where you know this girl likes you. And so you're puzzled on why you know she likes you because it's intuitive. You just know it. And she rejects you and it makes you say, okay, so we're going to play this type of courting. You know, there's many levels to courting. Now, if you go back a second and third time and the energy is the same, then you could just move on. But 9 times out of 10, your spirit knows, right? And she wants to be pursued because she see you handsome Dre and all these girls trying to get with you. But I want to see if you want me or you just want me, right?
Yeah.
And so we're dealing with those type of things, and they all manifest in some kind of way.
Yeah. I think I've ever, I think for the most part, it's been a little bit easier because it's the way I approach them. I think the way I do it, because I just introduce myself, and then depending on where we at, I talk about where we at, and then I always keep the conversation focused on her. I don't talk about me. And I tell my brother that a lot. Because when we go out, he be like, how is these girls just like liking you so much? I said, it's simple. Just be yourself. If you know who you are, and you be yourself, they gonna know who you are because you being yourself.
Absolutely. Authenticity, they said, has a higher vibration than love. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? When they measured the vibration of love, the only thing higher than that was authenticity. How about that? Being yourself. Creating the unique signature that is you, right? Yeah. So me, I was always at a deficit for material things. A lot of people around me could dress better, had more money, but they couldn't pull the girls I could pull, and they were wondering, well, how the hell is he doing that? Right? Because I was using a different set of tools to bring them in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I've never walked in a room and didn't feel confident that belongs to me. And if it belongs to me, I will, put that energy out there. And, it is what it is in most cases. And don't get me wrong, we've all dealt with rejection. I've missed by a landmark on something like that. Shit. Was I missing the signals and shit?
Hey, it happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, it does.
I've completely missed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. But everything is a lesson learned. That's how I just look at it.
Yes.
So there's I was reading the ISIS Papers by Frances Cress Welsing.
One of my favorite books of all time. Changed my life.
So I'm like halfway through the book, and there was a particular thing she was talking about with the black men in America, the feminization, the homosexuality and the bisexuality, and how that all ties into white supremacy. Do you think her making that statement publicly too? Because I saw a lecture of her a couple years ago on YouTube before she passed away. Do you think that could be a major part in the black community to where the white supremacy is kind of like altering the minds of black men and make them feel inferior, as opposed to?
Of course, but it's done in so many ways now. It's done through the water. Mm-hmm. It's done through the food. Yeah. It's done through the movies. It's done through the music. It's done through the prison system. It's done through the court systems. It's done through media. So many avenues they have at their disposal to paint us, the masculine man, in a light that subconsciously will make you not want to be that, to be under attack. And then, this dates all the way back to slave times and, what they would allow our women to see. The emasculation. They would destroy anything masculine to the point where the women began to raise the men to be a little bit more feminine. Don't be your masculine prowess doesn't need to be on display. It's so many avenues to it now, and now because society has accepted certain things, we see hurt people, and an intergeneration of feminine energy that, the soy, there's so many different avenues that deal with that. That's a book in itself.
Yeah, no, and there was the last thing that I read, which I kind of found profound. I think that ties into everything that's going on. Well, not just the black men, but the black community. She talked about circular and linear. The circular to where there's a problem being manifested, and then it becomes solved, but then it turns around and become a problem again to where you can't solve it. And she said it has something to do with altering the brain signals. And she said that it's like one of the most powerful organs that the human body has is the brain. Like, yes. If you can alter the brain signals, you alter the mind. So we're put in a state of a problem is created for us. We try to solve the problem, but the problem is too strong. We can't solve it, so we're stuck in the problem. And then she talked about the linear part where we know there's a problem and we focus on the solution by any means necessary until that solution has been solved.
Right.
And I said that was like profound, because a lot of us are in that circular state. We're not in the linear state.
Right.
You only have like a far few in between men out there who are in that circular state, because not the circular, but the linear state, because they're always looking for a solution by any means. Malcolm X was a prime example. Martin Luther King was a prime example. Fred Hampton was a prime example. So you got all these leaders out here.
And you got these prime examples in your everyday life. A man's mission is to solve problems. That's his duty. You know what I mean? If a man can't solve his own problems, don't get on no platforms telling me about other problems you are solving. You know what I mean? We naturally want to solve. We're natural scientists. We're natural adventurous. These things we do naturally. We need to go out into the world. We're hunter-gatherers. All of those little things in the sense of exploring the world and things of that nature. Our women are more nurturers, more loving, more caring, more providing, more preparing. And so that balance gives us feminine and masculine energy. Now, when me and my woman come together, there's a feminine side to me as a man. I'm able to be vulnerable and let that out. There's a masculine side of her where she wants to explore certain things and be creative in certain aspects. And we're able to do it together because we never lose the base of who in each other are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, most definitely. Now one day I get to experience that. My day coming. Eventually, he'll get there.
It'll be here. It'll be here, man.
So
yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm just letting everything flow. I think the right one for me will come as I'm focusing on my purpose. I think I have to walk this path for her to come along. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
So, before we get on up out here, because I don't want to keep you on here too long, we got to the hour. What advice would you like to give the Black man out there that's watching or that will be watching about going from a generational curse to a generational cure?
Awareness is one, right? Look yourself in the mirror and let go of what I call victim consciousness. And so stop. Your dad wasn't around, okay, but you're here. So-and-so, you grew up in bad conditions, great. You're here. And you're here for a purpose. You're here because you are able to endure and withstand all of that. Now you have to get to work, and that work is crafting yourself by first recognizing, what did my father go through? Why would my mother and father get together at 15? And why would I blame my father for not being a dad at 16? Maybe I need to rethink this situation. How do I correct my father's behavior through my action? How do I correct my grandfather's behavior through my action? I am because we are. And so recognizing first and working on self and saying, I did this, but I want my children to do that is a step in the right direction. So now my children and grandchildren can correct the mistakes of me. And I think that's how we take a generational curse and turn it into a generational cure. And that generally happens over generations. Yeah. You know what I mean? So do your part and set a standard so that the ones that come behind you can do their part and set a standard, and we can collectively ascend back to that throne of greatness. That's what I would tell you.
Yeah, I heard that from the great Black Dot. I really want to say thank you, and I want to give gratitude.
Oh, let me say this. ShopUrbanX.com if you want to get a copy of this book.
I got his link is in the description. ShopUrbanX.com.
UrbanX.com, exactly.
Yeah, I got some of my stuff from there too.
I love it. I love the shirt. I love the shirt. Absolutely.
Y'all get the book because I'm about to order as soon as we get off this show. Got to support the brother. Got the Gathering of the Master shirts too. So
yes, sir.
But yeah, I want to say thank you again for coming on this platform and sharing your point of view. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm grateful for this. And hopefully I get to have you back on here soon.
Absolutely.
I get this more figured out because I just kind of started, so I'm trying to
It's all good. It's all good. I love it. I love it. That's why I came on. I want to be a part of that building process to help you reach the next level that you're trying to reach.
And I really gratefully appreciate it. I remember when I met you for the first time was at Gathering of the Masters.
Yes.
Like that. And I showed you the shirt. I had the purple Gathering of the Masters shirt and the black and gold.
That's fire.
Yeah, that was a good time. So with that being said, y'all have a good night. Thank you again, Black Dot. I will talk to you soon.
Peace, King.